Member for Victoria Swan Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the opportunity to debate this motion this morning, and I look forward to hearing the views of both sides of the House on this issue. I don't expect very many members, whether Liberal or New Democrat, to disagree about the value of public education to our province's citizens, to our economy, to our collective well-being as a good and just society, and nor should they disagree. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, in its 2012 report, Better Skills, Better Jobs, Better Lives, said this about advanced economies like ours that underinvest in education. Quote, without adequate investment in skills, people languish on the margins of society, technological progress does not translate into economic growth, and countries, or provinces, can no longer compete. In short, skills have become the global currency of 21st century economies. And those are words that we need to bear in mind in the province of British Columbia. We can well appreciate here that the greatest single investment our province has ever made to further its social and economic development and to sustain our prosperity for more than a century has been public education. Without BC governments of all stripes in the 20th century sharing a consensus and building a modern, comprehensive, and inclusive public education system with excellent teaching instruction, there would be far less wealth, there would be no middle class, BC would be uncompetitive, we would have more crime, and we would be an undesirable, highly unequal society. So that's how we know that public education has been our single greatest legacy investment in our province. The problem here today in British Columbia, a decade and a half into the 21st century, is that this government doesn't seem to understand that underinvestment in education brings with it a host of problems for both the near term and the long term. We have gone, Mr. Speaker, from the second best funded jurisdiction for K-12 education in Canada over a decade ago to 9th place. We've been scolded by the Conference Board of Canada for having not even met the rate of inflation for funding increases and for falling further behind. Here's how BC stacks up in Confederation, Mr. Speaker. Total expenditures per student in 2002 constant dollars, 10th place amongst provinces. Total expenditures per capita in current dollars, 10th place goes to British Columbia. Total expenditures in K-12 education as a percentage of GDP, 9th place. 9th place, Mr. Speaker. The record is clear. The record is clear. More than a decade of this government at the helm of education has, Mr. Speaker, I'd ask the member from Comox, who was a former Minister of Education and did next to nothing when he had that position, to quiet down. Mr. Speaker, the underinvestment, if these Liberals would like to go and talk to parents who have children in the school system, the underinvestment shows in the classroom, in the ratio of students to educators. These are facts, Mr. Speaker. These are statistics gathered nationally. BC has shown no improvement in the educator-to-student ratio. Between 2005 and 10, the number of FTE educators in Canada increased by 5%. In British Columbia, it decreased by 2%. And before a Liberal can talk about declining enrollment, BC was one of seven provinces that experienced enrollment decline. We were the only outlier jurisdiction in the country that fired teachers that serve ELL learners and special education assistants. That's their legacy, Mr. Speaker. Now, I want to, at this point in debate, appreciate the members opposite and their views and the bipartisan work that the Select Standing Committee on Education or on Finance conducts annually. Members on both sides of this House have demonstrated great capacity to listen, to learn, to provide advice to the government. How disappointing, then, in this Parliament, since 2013, that the committee and its Liberal, New Democrat and independent members are continuously and utterly ignored. It's frustrating for the opposition on this side of the House. I can only imagine what it's like to be a backbench Liberal, to plead the case of communities and schools in their areas and regions, and to be utterly ignored by the Minister of Education. So let's look at these resolutions that are bipartisan. Both parties agreed were issues. quote, sufficient evidence was presented to the Finance Committee indicating that the K-12 system is experiencing cost pressures as a result of inflation and aging school facilities. The committee therefore recommends that enough funding be provided to schools to meet rising costs and capital needs while ensuring strong educational outcomes for BC students. That's not the budget we got, Mr. Speaker. We got a $54 million cut. We got a $50 million cut in capital. The record of this government is